working in guest relations at a boutique hotel in Ljubljana, Slovenia, taught me that confidence and competence occupy entirely different universes. Last August, an American couple arrived, convinced Slovenia was Slovakia's beach resort region, when I gently corrected them, explaining we're actually a separate country with our own language and history. The husband pulled out his phone and tried to prove me wrong using a blog post from 2003. He insisted I was covering for bad tourism marketing and demanded to see the real Slovakia parts of our capital city. If you're all ready, seeing the pattern, how confidence can bulldoze reality, and you want the deeper cultural logic behind these moments. Subscribing is simply how you keep learning ahead of the crowd. His wife asked if our mountains were the fake European Alps or the real ones. I spent 40 minutes explaining basic European geography while they filmed me for their Exposing Tourist Scams TikTok series. They checked out early to find authentic Slovakia and accidentally drove to Austria. They sent a complaint email from Vienna calling our hotel deliberately confusing. British expat in Krakow told me about an American tourist who visited Auschwitz, then got angry at a pierogi restaurant for ruining the mood by being too cheerful. She claimed Polish people should maintain somber atmospheres citywide out of respect. She tried to organize a mandatory silence policy for all Krakow restaurants within 5 kilometers of historical sites. When locals explained that Polish people actually live full lives in their own country, she accused them of Holocaust tourism commercialization for simply existing normally in their own homeland. She demanded the restaurant dim its lights and remove all decorative flowers. My cousin, managing a thermal bath in Budapest, watched an American man refuse to shower before entering the pools. Because I showered at my hotel this morning, and staff explained the mandatory pre-pool shower rule exists for hygiene. He launched into a speech about American freedom and bodily autonomy. He claimed Hungarian bathing regulations violated international human rights conventions. He tried to organize other tourists into a protest, waving his swimming trunks like a revolutionary flag. Most people just laugh at stories like this. I break down what they reveal about how Americans negotiate the world. If you recognize the difference, you're already one of the subscribers. Security escorted him out while he shouted about reporting Hungary to the Better Business Bureau. He left a review claiming the baths were anti-American propaganda disguised as wellness. Working as a park ranger in Plitvice Lakes National Park, Croatia, I've witnessed Americans apply breathtaking logical gymnastics to simple situations. Last summer, a family arrived wearing white sneakers and designer sundresses for our 16-kilometer hiking trail. When I suggested they needed proper footwear, the father explained that nature should accommodate all ability levels and demanded we install escalators on our UNESCO World Heritage waterfalls. He claimed the rocky natural paths violated ADA compliance and threatened to sue Croatia for discrimination. His teenager asked why we didn't have Wi-Fi boosters installed in the forest canopy. When I explained we preserve natural environments, he accused us of gatekeeping nature and insisted his tax dollars funded international parks. I informed him he'd paid Croatian entry fees, not American taxes. He responded by trying to pay me directly to override the hiking requirements. They attempted the trail anyway and had to be rescued after 2 kilometers. The mother's ruined Louboutins became evidence in their travel. Insurance claim for inadequate park. Infrastructure, my friend working at a Croatian Adriatic beach resort dealt with an American woman who brought her own sand from Florida because she'd read European sand was different. She spent her first morning spreading Florida sand in a designated area, building a proper American beach zone. When other guests complained about her territorial sand fortress, she explained she was improving the beach quality and offered to sell them bags of authentic Florida sand for €50 each. Hotel management made her clean up her imported sand, which she protested as destroying her vacation investment, and she demanded reimbursement for her checked luggage fees since her suitcase was 60% sand. She left convinced Croatia was jealous of superior American beaches. A concierge in Dubrovnik shared a story about an American couple who visited during peak summer season and got genuinely angry that locals spoke Croatian to each other, not to the tourists to each other in their own country. The wife approached restaurant staff having their break and scolded them for excluding tourists with foreign language. Insisted all private conversations in tourist areas should be conducted in English out of courtesy. Tried to report the restaurant to TripAdvisor for creating hostile language environment. Her husband filmed Croatian people speaking Croatian and posted it online as evidence of anti-tourist discrimination. Started a petition demanding Dubrovnik implement English-only zones in the old town when their hotel receptionist politely explained that Croatian people speak Croatian in Croatia. They requested a more internationally minded room assignment. Apparently believing language preferences varied by floor, my sister works at the Anmeldung office in Munich, processing residential registrations. She watched an American man have a complete philosophical crisis over German bureaucratic requirements. He'd moved to Munich for work and couldn't understand why registering his address required forms, appointments, and documentation. He arrived insisting he could just tell them his address verbally and demanded they put him in their system immediately. When my sister explained the formal registration process, he accused Germany of treating citizens like criminals and insisted this was surveillance state behavior. Claimed his constitutional rights protected him from paperwork. My sister gently reminded him the U.S. Constitution doesn't apply in Germany. He responded by quoting the Declaration of Independence, apparently believing it was internationally binding law. He demanded to speak to whoever's in charge of Germany to complain about the registration system. When told that would be complex, given Germany's federal structure, he assumed my sister was stonewalling him. He returned daily for a week, each time with a new conspiracy theory about why Germany required address registration. His final theory involved the EU tracking citizens for socialist redistribution algorithms. He eventually completed his registration but maintained that complying was his form of protest. A friend working at the Polish consulate in Chicago processes visa applications and has developed immunity to creative American logic. One applicant submitted paperwork for a 3-month stay, but listed his accommodation as, "I'll figure it out when I get there." When my friend explained Poland requires proof of accommodation, he responded that Europe is small, so he could just drive around and find places. He seemed shocked that Poland cared where tourists stayed. He insisted that requiring accommodation proof was micromanaging. His vacation is suggested. Poland was scared of spontaneous people. Submitted a revised application listing a screenshot of the Warsaw Marriott homepage as proof of accommodation. When that was rejected, he wrote an essay explaining that real travelers don't plan. He included a philosophical treatise on wanderlust and the American spirit of adventure. His application was denied. He reapplied, claiming his previous application was someone else, and he deserved a fresh start. Working at a pharmacy in Tallinn, Estonia, I've seen Americans absolutely baffled by European prescription requirements. One woman tried to buy antibiotics over the counter and couldn't comprehend why I needed a prescription. She explained that in America you need prescriptions too, but she thought Europe was more relaxed about that stuff. When I explained Estonian pharmaceutical regulations are quite strict, she pivoted and claimed she'd left her prescription at her hotel. I offered to call her doctor to confirm. She said her doctor was in Nebraska. I explained international prescription verification processes. She asked if I could just trust her this one time because she's obviously not a drug person. She offered to show me her teacher ID as proof of trustworthiness. When I maintained professional boundaries, she accused Estonian pharmacies of wanting people to stay sick for profit. She claimed European healthcare was propaganda and demanded to speak to my manager. My manager repeated the same prescription requirements. She left, threatening to report us to the American embassy for denying medication to a U.S. citizen abroad. She returned an hour later asking if we sold antibiotics. My brother-in-law manages a traditional restaurant in San Sebastian's Old Town, specializing in pintxos. He watched an American tourist try to order Spanish tapas and become increasingly frustrated when corrected that we serve pintxos in Basque Country. The man insisted pintxos and tapas were identical and accused the staff of making up words to charge tourist prices. when my brother-in-law explained the cultural and culinary distinctions between Basque pintxos and Spanish tapas. The tourist claimed this was splitting hairs and peak European pretentiousness. He demanded to see the regular menu without the fancy names, started calling pintxos Spanish finger foods, and got offended. When staff kept using the proper term, he accused the restaurant of cultural gatekeeping and insisted food names should be democratized. Wrote a review claiming the restaurant was discriminatory against non-Basque speakers and suggested San Sebastian was unwelcoming to tourists who just want normal Spanish food. He never quite grasped that Basque country has distinct cultural identity in calling pintxos tapas is actually culturally insensitive. Colleague working at a Copenhagen cafe watched an American woman have a complete breakdown over Danish pastry prices. She ordered a candlesticka cinnamon roll. When told the price, accused the cafe of mistake. When the price was confirmed, she launched into an economic lecture about how pastries shouldn't cost more than $2. She insisted Danish pricing violated basic market economics and claimed someone was definitely getting scammed in this supply chain. She demanded to speak with the baker to negotiate wholesale prices. She calculated the cost of flour, sugar, and cinnamon on her phone and presented this as evidence of price gouging. When staff explained Danish wages, rent, and cost of living, she dismissed it as excuses for bad business practices. She suggested they just pay workers less to bring prices down and seemed genuinely confused why this was problematic. She bought the pastry while loudly protesting that her purchase was under duress. She ate it, admitted it was delicious, then still left a review condemning the prices and suggesting tourists bring their own snacks to Denmark, working at a specialty cheese shop in Lyon. My friend helped an American customer who wanted regular cheese, not the weird stuff. When asked what he meant, he gestured at the entire shop filled with French cheesies and said he wanted normal cheese-like from the grocery store. My friend offered compt, suggesting it was mild and accessible. He insisted it was too French and asked for cheddar. My friend explained this was a French cheese shop in France. He responded that they should still carry American cheese, since it's objectively the most popular. Couldn't understand why a French fromagerie in Lyon wouldn't stock Kraft singles. When shown the extensive variety of French cheeses, he claimed this was limited selection because there was no mozzarella or pepper jack. He asked if the shop was against American products and suggested this was discrimination. He left empty-handed, muttering about cheese snobbery. He posted on travel forums warning Americans that French cheese shops refuse to sell normal cheese and suggested bringing dairy products from home and checked luggage. I've learned that vacation confidence and cultural awareness rarely travel together. Americans arrive with extraordinary certainty about how the world works, then face the devastating reality that different places operate differently. The real comedy isn't that they're wrong. Everyone's wrong sometimes. It's the elaborate architectural marvels of logic they construct to avoid admitting they didn't know something. They'll cite fake treaties, invent economic theories, threaten diplomatic incidents, and question the fundamental nature of European society rather than simply say, "Oh, I didn't know that," next time you travel. Remember, confidence is bringing a Florida sand to a Croatian beach. Humility is realizing every country figured out how to function long before you arrived with opinions. If this story widened your map of how the world really works, imagine having that clarity every single week. Subscribe and don't let your worldview shrink back to default settings. But where's the fun in that? The world needs Americans confidently explaining Hungarian bathing regulations to Hungarians. How else would we know we're doing it wrong?